Welcome to SarderTV. I'm Vaishali Jain. We have the pleasure of having Donn Morrill with us today. Donn works at Amazon as a Senior Manager of Solutions Architecture for Amazon Alexa, the speech and personal assistant technology behind the speaker Echo. Donn is also a member of the Board of Directors of the New York Tech Alliance, and he's here to tell us more. Donn, thank you so much for joining us today.
Sure.
So you've had an interesting career in the technology space. Tell us about what you're doing today.
Yeah, most recently I've been with Amazon for the past 4.5 years. I started my career at Amazon in their web services division, their cloud computing division, where I led various solutions architecture teams. And then for the past 1.5 years, I've been part of the Alexa organization. And Alexa is the brains behind the Echo device that you might be familiar with. And I lead a solutions architecture team there. And my team is responsible for working with our partners, Amazon partners, helping them understand the Alexa technology and figuring out how they might be able to integrate voice and integrate the Alexa experience into the products that they're making.
Can you give us a short description of what Alexa does and its capabilities?
Sure. So Alexa is kind of like a voice-based personal assistant, right? Many people are familiar with the Echo, which is a cylindrical speaker that sits on your table or sits in your kitchen, and you can speak to it and ask it for things such as playing music, such as setting timers. You can use it to control what we call smart home devices. So if you have intelligent lighting or intelligent air conditioning in your house, you can say, Alexa, turn on the lights, or Alexa, turn off the lights. You can use it for setting reminders and for doing kind of interesting and quirky things like telling jokes, for example.
Okay, and we've also heard you mention a quote that says the touch of age has come to an end and it's no longer the primary interface.
Yeah, I mean, I think the nature of that quote is that, and that quote kind of struck me in another talk I was giving. We're seeing, as in many areas of technology, we're seeing an evolution in the way that people interact with compute, right? And in the old days, people interacted with a keyboard and with a mouse, and over the past couple of years, that paradigm has shifted to mainly a touch-based interaction. And what we're seeing right now is a shift towards what's even a more natural, what we feel is a more natural way to interact with compute, and that's just by speaking to it and using your voice. Does that mean that voice is going to totally replace other forms of interaction with compute? Certainly not. Jeff has a saying that people still have eyes, right? People still have hands. They want to touch, they want to see things, but voice is a great simplifier when it comes to interacting with computers.
Do you think that this could actually pave the way for having discussions with a device?
Yeah, that's an interesting observation. Right now, Alexa and many of the AI or the voice-based systems that we're seeing come into the market are what we call kind of short-form interactions. They're task-driven interactions. Alexa, what time is it? Alexa, play the Beatles. Alexa, turn on the lights. Conversational interaction with a computer is a much harder problem to solve, and there's this well-known thing in compute called the Turing test, right? And one of the goals of the Turing test is to have somebody sit across from the computer and not know if they're talking to a computer or talking to a human, and that was kind of the high bar when it came to artificial intelligence and interacting with a computer. Are we there yet? Certainly not. Can Alexa pass a Turing test? Absolutely not. But I think broadly as an industry, it's a direction we've been moving in for a long time. Whether we get there or not, I don't know, but we'd like to think that Alexa is a good first step in that direction.
So you say you've been working with Amazon for about 4.5 years now. Tell us a little bit about the work culture there.
Yeah, it's a very exciting place to work. It's a culture of innovation and achievement. I'll give you a quick story. I started my career working for very large companies. I worked in telecom for a while, and I worked on Wall Street for a while, and I really didn't enjoy the atmosphere and the culture there. And so I moved in kind of a small company, startup space, working in the nonprofit space for a while. And then a friend had invited me to check out Amazon, and I had obviously been a customer of Amazon for a while. I said, okay, I'll take his word for it. I'll give Amazon a shot. And when I got there, it was really interesting to see how different of a company Amazon was from some of those kind of old school large companies that I had worked for. It's really, it feels like the most well-funded startup on the planet. It's a culture of achievement. It's a culture of innovation. We like to think of ourselves as pioneers. We're always trying to kind of push the edge of what's possible and invent new things. So it's a pretty exciting place to be.
how the work culture differs from some of the other places that you've worked with in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you were to compare enterprises the size of an Amazon, one of the things different about Amazon is how we have these things called leadership principles at Amazon, and there's 14 of these leadership principles that Jeff, who's the founder of Amazon, and the leadership team work very hard to articulate and to get right and to say, these are the things that we believe leaders at Amazon should embrace and should use to drive the culture and their decision making of the organization. And so those leadership principles, you hear those types of initiatives from other large companies, and many oftentimes a CEO will come and a CEO will go, and they'll be kind of the flavor of the day when it comes to initiatives and when it comes to guiding principles. But Amazon has had those principles in place for a long, long time, and everybody in the company tends to believe in those principles, and they help drive the culture and they help drive the decision making, so that if we have a big decision that we need to make within the organization, we can pick a leadership principle. Let's pick a bias for action example. It's a very popular one, as is customer obsession, right? And we can say, we're going to make this decision because it aligns with the leadership principle of customer obsession or of bias for action, and everybody in the room understands that right away, and we're able to move very quickly and execute on that decision.
Tell us more about these leadership principles and how they help motivate and develop your team.
Yeah, I mean, there's 14 leadership principles. Customer obsession is probably the one that drives the company first and foremost. We have a saying at Amazon that we like to always start with the customer and work backwards. And in terms of managing the team, we have a new leadership principle. It's not too often that we actually implement new leadership principles, but we recently came out with learn and be curious. It's pretty true, right? I think what the organization has recognized is that we're in a very fast-moving industry, right? We're in the technology industry, and if the leaders and if the people in the company aren't learning, aren't being curious, don't want to innovate, and don't want to pioneer, then you're going to be in trouble as a company. You're going to get left behind, and there's lots of examples over the years that companies that haven't adapted, that haven't learned, that haven't innovated. And so by kind of institutionalizing learning and being curious, it becomes part of the corporate culture, and it becomes part of the way that Amazon grows as a company.
How does Amazon foster a culture of learning?
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of learning tools, of course. We have an online system, not unlike a YouTube or something, where you can go and you can watch talks. We have this thing called the Principles of Amazon Talk, where our most senior technical leaders will give a couple hours of their time and give a talk on a technical topic. It might be a technical topic related to a specific Amazon product, or it might be some interesting and new trend that they're seeing in the industry. And so, using that mechanism, we like to disseminate information across the company. And then we also have a pretty sophisticated learning platform within Amazon, and all employees are encouraged to just go there and sign up for courses and learn as you go. And then I would say there's also a culture of paying attention to what's going on in the industry, right? So if I catch somebody reading a news article or watching YouTube, it's not like it's not part of their job. They're learning about the industry, they're learning about what's going on, and so those types of behaviors are encouraged.
What kinds of learning technologies does the organization use?
Well, computer-based training is one, right? This learning system is obviously computer-oriented. Video is very popular, obviously. These talks that we give, brown bag sessions, internal training sessions, are often recorded, and like I said, we have our kind of internal version of YouTube, if you will, and employees are encouraged to go there and self-study.
Tell us about some things that you really enjoy about your job.
I enjoy being in a company that is forward-thinking, that is pioneering, that is willing to make big long-term bets on new spaces, right? If you look at the mission of Amazon, our mission is to be Earth's most customer-centric company, right? It's not relative to selling books. It doesn't have anything to do with e-commerce. It doesn't have anything to do with cloud computing. It doesn't have anything to do with Alexa, right? And so what that does is it opens up broad opportunity across Amazon to explore new technologies and explore business models that make sense and have long-term viability, right? If you were to compare that with some other companies that might have more of a quarter-to-quarter or a short-term type of attitude, Amazon tends to make those longer bets, and that makes it a pretty exciting place to work.
You're also a member of the board of directors of the New York Tech Alliance.
That's right.
Yeah. Tell us more about what that organization's about.
Sure. So the New York Tech Alliance is actually a merger of two organizations here in New York. One was called the New York Technology Council, of which I was the founder and chairman for a while, and then the New York Tech Meetup, which is one of the largest monthly gatherings of technology enthusiasts in the world. And the boards of the two organizations got together. We had worked together pretty closely in the past and got together and said, you know, there's probably a lot of synergy between the mission of the Tech Meetup and the New York Tech Council. And so we decided that we were going to merge and become the New York Tech Alliance. And our mission is twofold. It's both to represent New York as a great place for technology companies and help technology companies grow and thrive here in New York. But we also want to make sure that technology is being used for social good, right? And you know, technology, when done wrong, can be a terrible thing, but when done right, can be a wonderful thing. And so our mission is to help make sure that technology is being used for social good, but also want to help technology companies grow here in New York.
Mm-hmm. Can you give us some examples of that?
Yeah, I mean, education is obviously a big part of everything that we do, and so we put on seminars and events dozens of times a year on anything from topics around cloud computing and business intelligence to more of the operational aspects of business, such as raising funds or working with venture capitalists, or how do I market my startup. So we try and take a broad approach to operating a technology company, and then we put on events and seminars that help educate our members.
Mm-hmm. So do you have to be a techie to join, or would it be beneficial to, or what about people who are just interested?
No, not at all. You know, some of our topics and sessions are more technical in nature, but a lot are kind of broad in nature, right? Just talk about what is cloud computing in general, how can cloud computing help my business, right? You don't have to be a technologist to know that cloud computing is kind of a big deal now, and that there's probably some element to it that can help your business. And then there are non-technical aspects of running a company too, like I said, like raising capital, or talking to a venture capitalist, or learning how to market, right? Those are things that aren't necessarily specific to technology, but are important to grow any business in the state.
What are some interesting technology-based businesses and startups that you're seeing being built now?
Yeah, I'll be a little biased here. You know, I think the kind of the AI and bot space is pretty hot right now, so we're seeing a lot of interesting activity in that space. You know, the one thing I'll say is, you know, interesting about New York is that it tends to have a wide diversity of what people would consider technology, right? We've got the finance industry, and there's a lot of technology that underpins the finance industry. We have the fashion industry, and there's a lot of technology that underpins that industry. So it's not just what one might consider technology from a pure tech perspective, but it's also the technology that underpins other industries in New York.
We wanted to get your thoughts around the skills gap, and specifically around the technology space. Do you find that there's a skills gap?
I want to kind of define that a little bit more concisely, right? So when I hear skills gap, I might think that somebody is coming and I've hired somebody on my team, and they're missing some fundamental thing that they need in order to be successful. I don't necessarily think that that's the case. I think the university system is preparing students well for careers in technology. What I do think is that in the workforce at large, there's almost like call it a talent gap, if you will, right? There aren't enough people out there that are technologists to fill all the jobs that are open, right? I can't comment on specifically how many Amazon openings we have, but we have lots of openings in the technology space. Google has lots of openings. Any technology company is going to find themselves with lots of openings in this space. So I think there's a kind of a talent gap broadly across the industry, but the candidates that we are finding tend not to have gaps in their skills. They're well prepared in order to be successful in the space, but I think broadly as a society there are challenges to overcome there.
Why do you think that this gap exists?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and it's probably not something that we can be, fleshed out in just a couple minutes here. But I think broadly, we as a society are still in the midst of a fundamental shift between an industrial economy to a service and to a technology and information-oriented economy. And what that means is that it's a generational problem in that you need more and more people that are tech savvy and that are willing to go into the tech industry, and less people that are going into industrial types of activities. So I think it's going to take time for us as a society to figure that out, and it's obviously taking a long time, and not something that's going to happen overnight.
I know you mentioned that you think the universities are doing well to prepare their students. What do you think the solution is around this then?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that I think we can do. I think first and foremost, we need to look at diversity of workforce. You know, if you look at most of the technology companies here in the United States, you'll find that it predominantly employs white men, right? And so there's a whole underserved group of people, whether it's minorities or women or what have you, that the technology industry could do a much better job of making sure that they're participating in the workforce and in our industry. I think the second thing is to we need to think globally as an industry in general, right? If you look at where technology tends to be focused, it's really hyper-focused on, say, the Bay Area or on New York or in Boston or maybe overseas in London or some of the big cities. But there's a whole big world out there that is still waiting to be kind of integrated into the technology industry at large. And so I think thinking diversely and thinking globally are two of the things that companies could do a better job at. You know, it also makes one think deeply about the industry that you're in, right? Is it just that men are naturally more gravitated to this industry, or are there some inherent biases in the industry that we're either not consciously aware of, or maybe some people are consciously aware of it? We need to overcome those and get better at hiring a diverse workforce.
What would you recommend to students and to some of the young folks out there who are looking to decide on a major or decide what they want to do when they graduate? What are some recommendations you give, some career advice?
There's lots of opportunities out there to kind of get your hands dirty on technology nowadays. You know, in the old days, you know, maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, having access to computers and being able to sit down and experiment with a computer was perhaps a costly endeavor, but now computers are everywhere, right? Many people have smartphones, at least here in the United States. Many people have laptops or access to computers, so they can take a free online course and learn about computers. You don't have to go through a 4-year university curriculum to get an appreciation for what a career in technology is all about. So I would say to young people, don't be afraid to explore, don't be afraid to look at opportunities, don't be afraid to break things, right? People sometimes sit down and are afraid to interact with a machine for fear of breaking something, but don't be afraid to break something and to experiment and to learn. Some people are going to find that they enjoy technology, and some people are going to find that they don't enjoy technology, and better to find it out early than halfway through a university program.
Tell us why you decided to build a career in the technology industry.
I was fortunate enough in my middle school that we had an Apple II computer in the library at the time, and so I was able to get access to technology at an early age and learn that I really enjoyed tinkering with computers and playing with them. And so that kind of natural curiosity about how machines worked and how computers worked carried through to my high school years and on into my college years. And then when I got into the university program, it opened up a wide array of kind of areas of discipline within technology, whether it's hardware and building computers or software and, you know, writing software or networking and learning how networks work. There's, you know, within the technology domain, there's a whole subset of areas of expertise, which makes it kind of a really interesting place to want to spend one's career in.
What would you say has made you successful?
Two things, really. The first is that I like the business of technology and the business aspects of things. So after I got my degree in computer science, I went on to get an MBA. And so I think kind of that well-rounded approach to technology industry has helped me. I'm not one to, I used to be, but I'm not anymore one to sit at a computer for 12 hours a day and write software. I used to enjoy that, and there are other people that do enjoy that a lot, but I like the business of technology, which I think has helped me. I also am fortunate enough to have a fairly well-rounded background, right? I've spent some time in telecom, I've spent some time in finance, I've spent some time with small companies, and so I think having a diverse background in diverse industries can help make somebody successful. It gives you a different perspective on things.
What role did mentors play in helping shape your life and your career?
Yeah, mentors are definitely helpful. I mentioned the person that invited me to Amazon in the first place, right? And without his guidance and leadership, I wouldn't be here today. And I would also say that, you know, managers throughout my career, the people that manage me and my teams, are almost considered as mentors as well, right? Sometimes people who are managers are just managing the team and are very regimented about it. But sometimes managers are mentors, and they kind of help you along, and they ask you probing questions. And it's that type of management style and leadership style that I think has helped me along the way. Yeah.
What do you recommend to people who might not have a mentor but are trying to seek one out? How do they seek that out, and how do they choose a mentor?
Yeah, we're fortunate enough within Amazon that we have a formal mentorship program, and so that if you're seeking a mentor, you can just fill out a form, and somebody is often willing to help you out. You know, if you're seeking a mentor, you can search within your own company. What I would encourage you to do is to seek mentorship outside of your direct line or your direct business line. Like I said, it brings more diversity to yourself, and it brings different perspectives. So I would encourage people to seek it outside of their line of business, and perhaps even outside of their company, right? Go to a social event, go to a meetup, meet other people, right? You're always going to find interesting people there. One of the values that I hear from the New York Tech Alliance members when they come to our events is just the diversity of people that they meet. And so interact with people in your industry, interact with people outside of your industry, find people that are interesting to you, you know, buy them lunch or buy them a drink, and just kind of pick their brain.
What advice would you give to somebody who's just starting out in the industry?
Build the base first, right? Build a competency, whether it's in network administration, or whether it's in software engineering, or whether it's in hardware engineering. Build that base and get good at it, and focus on it, and then start to build out from there, right? Like spend a couple of years in that space, and then you'll find other things that interest you. As you work in organizations, you'll see product managers do their job, and you'll see business development people do their job, and you'll see QA engineers do their job, right? And so from that perspective, you'll have the ability to see what other roles and what other people are doing in the industry, and then you should be able to kind of almost kind of direct your career based on observing what other functions are within the organization. So start out with a good base, and then kind of observe, and then grow from there, and chart your course.
Tell us what you think makes a good leader.
You know, a good leader is someone who is as much a mentor and a coach as they are somebody who's kind of managing the schedule and managing the timeline. Certainly a good leader has to make sure that that stuff gets done, but I think a good leader allows people to grow and is not afraid of people growing and getting better, and perhaps getting better than that leader, right? If you're a good leader, you are achieving success through your team members, and so you have to allow your team to perform at their highest level in order for you to be successful as a leader. Somebody who kind of steps back and allows their team to grow, provides them coaching and mentoring along the way is somebody who I think is a good leader.
How would you describe your own leadership style?
Well, I'd like to think it's somewhat similar, right? I'm fortunate enough at Amazon where the team that I manage is a very senior team, right? They all have many years of experience. They're experienced technologists, and so I see my role there is to, you know, get out of their way, let them do their job, help them with strategic direction, help them understand what's going on at more senior levels in the organization, help knock down any red tape, but my job is to get out of the way and let them be successful.
Donn, well, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah,
this is
happy
great.
to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll see you next time on SarderTV.